All right. So most entrepreneurs feel like they're building their business totally alone. And a question that we get time and time again is you guys talk a lot about like building your business with God. How the heck do I actually do that? And so we're joined today by two guys who are, if not more mystical and weirder than I am, definitely in the running. Spiritual director Luke. We got coach, former shaman, Holy Spirit chef Alexander Vandelar. And the fourth guest of this podcast is John Eldredge, who wrote this book a long time ago called Fathered by God, which is such an emotional book that my voice is already cracking while I'm talking about it. But it's a book that has meant a lot to myself and Luke and Alexander. And I know that a lot of you guys in the fellowship, for those of you who are in the community, have been going through this week by week with Stephen. God bless Stephen. He is not with us because it is the evening time, but he is definitely here in spirit. And I just wanted to kick off on this idea of building with God. And Alexander, I want to kind of throw it over to you because this phrase, build with God, you were the first person to ever introduce me to it. And I know that it's been like etched onto your heart for a long time. So what does that actually even mean?
Yeah, I think, I came up through the world of personal development, personal, like you make yourself into a legend, and this is what I kind of, the younger version of myself learned from Tony Robbins and people as such, or maybe, a modern reference would be, an Alex Hormozy. And I got to a point where I realized that I wasn't as legendary as I thought I was. And there was just like things that I was just, no matter how hard I tried or whatever different meditation or whatever, it just wasn't working, it wasn't happening. And so, I have a bunch of fun stories about how God came into my life in a powerful way and kind of invited me to say, hey, you're not building by yourself anymore. And also, I'm not just forcing you into this thing. I want to do it with you, which again has not been a perfect linear path for me. It's something that I've been wrestling through. But that was kind of the essence that I felt of like, hey, there's a way to collaborate. And so the whole idea of you don't have to do it alone. That's kind of how God came into the picture and invited me to do that through how I operate as an entrepreneur.
Cool. And Luke, you were, my head like born on the mission fields. Like you're in India, you're in deep to this whole idea of spirituality and the church. What about whenever you got into business? Like, did that integrate well? Was that a smooth transition? Was it like butter?
It's like butter with rocks in it, butter and sand. I think the key, just with that phrase, building with God, the key word for me is with. And because the background that I would have come from would have emphasized a different word there, and it would have emphasized for. And so it was all about, what are you doing for God? And, he has done all this stuff for you. Now it's your turn to go and do stuff for him.
It's like, all right, buddy, pay up.
Yeah. And it's really difficult for people who have kind of grown up in the church, grown up with that understanding of like, listen, he has done everything for you. And there's this deep understanding of like, I am a sinner. I am, saved by grace. I am nothing. And there's that is emphasized more. And there's this sort of sense of like, okay, so when it comes to my turn to be able to kind of do stuff, and he's going to give me a mission and I'm going to do that for him. And so even in the context of business, that sense of building is also a really difficult word, because it was like, how do I have a say in this? It's like, God does the building. I'm serving for God, that's the realm that I had kind of come into. So even that whole phrase, like you could go through each of those words. The building part had some real big issues. The with had some really big issues.
We're doing a Hebrew word study over here. And if you look at each individual letter.
But it's such a difficult, the chip has to be pulled out if you're just full of that for God to turn it into the with. But anyway, that's was the biggest thing for me.
So good. I was flicking through the book. I mean, I've been reading this book. I haven't stopped reading this book for 15 years. And this caught my attention just whenever you were speaking, Luke. It's a verse from Psalm 115, verse 16. It says, "The highest heavens belong to the Lord." So all the church people that you're talking about, they're like, yep, 100%, got it. I'm on board. I'm fully bought in. It's like, but wait to hear the second part. But the earth he has given to man. And it's like, just wait until you find out that you're actually a son of God and that Jesus is your brother and that you're a king in the kingdom. It's like, I don't think people are ready for this. But it's so interesting. Like, even if I was trying to figure out like what the title of the theme was going to be for tonight in this kind of pilot episode, AI was yelling at me. It was like, don't call it like how to build your business with God. It's so vanilla. It's so boring. Like, make it something a little bit spicier. And then, I was kind of like looking for an omen, and someone literally just joined the community. And I've hidden their identity here, but we've a question that we ask every person that comes in: what's one thing you'd like to change about your life right now? And they're like, I just want to feel like I'm really building something with God. This was literally 2 minutes before you guys showed up, and I was like, okay, there's definitely something here. And so we just want to spend the next few minutes. We've got about half an hour left with each other, and we're going to go through a bit of a practical step-by-step based on the Father by God book and based on just like whatever the Holy Spirit wants to cook up here of how do you actually start to build your business with God. And even deeper than that, it's how does that transition into you going on a lifelong adventure with the Father rather than going all by yourself. So this is a pilot episode, and I thought it would be kind of fun to have some intro music. So I've selected my intro music. I'm going to not edit this because I'm just going to rip it out. But this is, imagine this is like smoothly edited and smoothly transitioned. This also is from like 18 years ago.
Oh, don't wear the ring. I know it's very tempting. Yes, you will appear to disappear, but the dog who rides it, they'll know you're there. Yes, Lord Sauron has many spies.
Many spies have many eyes.
Boom! And then it'll be like, explosions, and like we'll all run out on stage, and like Tony Robbins will be there, and it's like, welcome to the fellowship! Wah! I was workshopping some taglines earlier, and it was like, one of them I did actually like. It was said, live a story worth telling. And I was like, I actually quite like that, because, I mean, the reason why I got into John Eldredge, I think I read this book whenever I was like 15 or something crazy like that, and most of it went fully over my head. But it's funny how I keep coming back to it. I'm like, oh crap, this guy John was totally right all this time. And he talks about being an orphan, and like, oh, most guys are walking around with like an orphan spirit. I think I was 15. I was like, yeah, whatever, bro. It's like you're being a bit dramatic. And it's like, then my 20s come around, and all of a sudden my 30s, it's like, then you've got 3 kids, then you're building a business, and you're like, wow, this orphan spirit has been a huge part of my life for a very long time. So, Alexander, in your own words, like what is the orphan spirit? I feel like you and I discovered it together. We were like, what the heck is that thing?
Why are we both crying so much? Yeah. I'm alone. I've been abandoned. I must fend for myself, protect myself, and care for myself and provide for myself. This is the dialogue and the essence and the identity of the orphan, who, if left alone, will build a very, in a lot of ways, sad life. In contrast to what's available to that child if they grab the hand of the Father.
AI is here. AI was yelling at me. One of the titles it recommended was orphans build empires, sons build kingdoms. And it is interesting because, you know, we all know some super, super successful, like people at the top of the top, and you meet these guys and there is the orphan spirit is showing massively. And that's no disrespect and that's no judgment to them, but that drive, that anger, that self-preservation, that I am going to do this, I'm going to make this happen, can get you really, really far in life. And I think that's why, as a young man, I resented John Eldridge and I resented this idea of the orphan spirit, because I'm like, bro, like, this is good fuel for me. Like, I can use this anger to take me very, very, very far. It's like, I don't need all this stuff. It's like, I'm going to go and figure out myself. And Luke, I know one of your favorite stories is the prodigal son, and that's a very prodigal attitude as well. If you want to unpack that a little bit for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very common rhetoric, isn't it? Very common narrative to hear is like, we unpack each other's stories and we find like this pain, this deep sort of place of like, you know, where someone else has kind of given us something that we've suffered through and we've prevailed. And as men, we kind of gravitate to that narrative as being the interesting, very, very modern, very appealing hero journey, because it's so like out of the crap that was given to them, they found the drive to be able to succeed, and they did it on their own. And that hero is something that we kind of deep down really kind of like go, I wish that was me. You know, because there's so much pain inside each one of us of wanting to do what the prodigal son did, which was, hey, give me what I'm owed and let me go and prove myself. Let me take my portion of the so-called inheritance. Yeah, Dad, whatever. I'm gonna take what is owed me, and I'm just gonna go and make my own journey. Thank you very much. I don't need you, and I don't need what the world is going to give me. I'm going to just be a self-made man.
Yo, that's literally where I was going next. Like he's got a line in here that I saw earlier, and he says, you know, we celebrate the self-made man, but actually we should be like commiserating them. It's like, oh, you were a self-made man. It's like you didn't have someone to initiate you into masculinity. You didn't have someone to walk with you. It's like, that's a tragedy.
Yeah, it's kind of like you're either a self-made or you're beta male. You know?
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting, again, just when I was flicking there, something that John talks about a lot is that, you know, well, why, like, and even for the person listening or watching, they're like, well, you know, I grew up with a dad, or I have someone in my life. It's like, I don't have an orphan spirit. Like, I'm not an orphan. Like, you guys are being absolute snowflakes. You guys are being overly dramatic here. But it's interesting. It's like, it's the heart posture as well, right? And it's really, really unnerving to see how much of this attitude we can bring into like every single domain in our lives. And it's even just like Dan Sullivan, a different secular business coach, he's got this thing, who, not how. He's like, instead of asking, how am I going to do this? Ask who. And I think there's an element of that is actually like a beautiful spiritual principle as well. Because our default position is like, I'm faced with a challenge. How am I going to do this? Versus like, who can I walk alongside to actually overcome this problem and learn something and not have to do it all by myself?
It's interesting that AI is kind of like taking that on steroids now, isn't it? It's creating an greater possibility for us to kind of, you know, supercharge that orphan spirit.
Right. And I was actually, funny you say beta male. I'm not usually perusing this side of the internet, but I bought a book that I won't even tell you the title of because I'm embarrassed, but the Holy Spirit prompted me to buy it. I was like, I'm going to figure out what all these Sigma young Gen Z people are like talking about. It's like, I don't even know what that means. So I've been going through this book, and he actually made a banging point. He was talking about masculinity, and he says it's a little bit like a AI image that has been regenerated so much to the point where it doesn't contain any of the original essence in it anymore. And so he goes back to, let's say, and I'm not bashing any fathers, but But generally speaking, it's like our father's generation were uninitiated men for a lot of different reasons. And then their fathers were uninitiated for lots of different reasons. And then their fathers' fathers, and you can just go all the way back to Adam. You can just like keep it super broad and super general. It's like we are like making these carbon copies of unmasculine, uninitiated men. And the result is the whole world is just run by a bunch of orphans where everyone's stabbing each other in the back. Everyone's trying to like protect their own. It's like a huge scarcity mindset. And there's just a lot of fear and there's a lot of isolation. And I think a big outcome of that is how we treat ourselves and our self-talk. And obviously, Alexander, like you're the GOAT in this area. But how does this relate to the golden rule? Talk to me about that, about, you know, Jesus's ideas about loving your neighbor and everything like that.
Yeah. I was sharing, the golden rule with a client. And as I read it out, it occurred to me, the second portion of it, of love your neighbor as you love yourself. And, like I've met some people and I've seen how they relate to themselves. I'm like, I feel bad for your neighbor. I was like, but that's interesting because it seems like, because again, Jesus is operating from this different paradigm where he's like, of course you love yourself, right? Like that's how he sees us. He sees us as this, these beautiful, perfect sons. And so love your neighbor as you love yourself. As soon as you go to try and implement it, you're like, all right, I'm going to go treat my neighbor like myself. Wait, why am I treating them like garbage? And you just start looking at yourself. And another interesting idea paired with this, because you talked about the power of our word, is the idea of like, do we actually trust ourselves? Right? And this, I think it really applies to the church world, because some people are like, I trust God. God's got it. No problem. God. Like, yeah, but what about you? I don't know. God just does everything through me and for me. And it's another way of losing power or being powerless or not being part of it.
It's another way of being an orphan because you essentially have just abdicated. Like you've given like so much parental responsibility. You're like, I can't do anything by myself. And I feel like God the Father's just like, bro, would you like learn how to crawl or something?
Dude, that's literally, I feel like been the past year for me. I'm like, oh, cool. Like I've got a dad. I'm not an orphan. Daddy, please do everything for me.
Would you get out of my house, son?
Not again. Yeah, wild.
Yeah,
I got so cooked by that just now, and also,
and also for all of eternity going forward from this point on. Yeah, and I think like being uninitiated in lots of different ways. Like you can point fingers, like it's unproductive to point fingers. You can be like, oh, it's society's fault, or it's my dad's fault, or it's my church's fault, or it's my whatever, or it's my own fault. It's like okay, cool. Let's just move past all of that and let's just figure out how to go on a journey where we can become initiated men, where we could start to actually walk with the Father, so we can rise up into the identity of sons, kings in his kingdom, and ultimately use our businesses to make earth look more like heaven, aka build the kingdom. So look, I'd love for you to run us through the stages of masculinity. Do you want me to throw them up?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So
6 stages.
6 stages. Let's freaking go.
Yeah. So
and to take this in any way that you want, like just what does this mean to you and what does this mean for us?
Yeah, nice. I mean, for me, it's been interesting because when I think about these stages, I sometimes like to think in like clean buckets. So I'm going from one, stage to the next stage to the next stage. But I think kind of like the overarching caveat is kind of these stages overarch, or rather they blend into each other, or sometimes they overlap entirely. So it's not like we go from the boy to the cowboy and we leave the boy behind, but the boy kind of continues. I mean, so we're building, in a sense, like a pyramid, building blocks on top of each other so that we become a complete man rather than the goal is just to become a sage. And I think that's the interesting thing is like, okay, so if we start off as a boy, it's kind of the one who's crying out for that, belonging. Whose am I is kind of the call of the boy. And then quite early on, as we kind of discover that we want to go out and do some damage as a teenager and so on and so forth, we're a cowboy, and so we're keenly attuned to this need for adventure, this need to go out and find something to prove our worth.
Right. And John's big question there is, do I have what it takes?
Do I have what
And
it
you're
takes?
just looking for opportunities to like prove it.
Yeah. And then there's these interesting, I think the next two stages are kind of like, they happen almost simultaneously, the warrior and the lover, often in our, end of our teens, our 20s, early 30s, that warrior and the lover. And I really think it's so fascinating how the warrior stage is all about the conquest, the mission. And yet so often, because of our yearning, which can sometimes just be a lustfulness, to kind of gain prowess kind of with the opposite sex, we put the mission in the category of the woman. And I love how John Eldredge says that that's just a dire move. Like, that's going to really wreck that ability for us to move on to the next stages, is because there will become a point where the woman will turn around and go, okay, look, now you've conquered me. Now, what are you really all about? And then if the warrior has been all about just conquering the woman, that's going to be a bit of a disaster.
Right.
And then it's the king. So in the warrior thing, we're following a king. I think that's a really interesting thing about the warrior stage, is finding a king. And that's something I find quite interesting about our culture these days, is there's this kind of message to become a king too soon.
Right.
And don't be someone else's minion. You can do it on your own when you're 15. Like, you can go make $10,000 a month when you're 16. So go ahead and do it, and just, live the 4-hour work week. And go and, then find a woman and find your house and so on and so forth, and then become the king. But that's then the issues of the warrior learning how to be a prince, because that's another word I use often when I'm talking about this, is this area of a prince is kind of a mixture of the cowboy, the warrior, and the lover.
Right.
And we have to be able to understand living under authority and submitting to a king before we can be a king. Otherwise, we'll end up being a ruthless, warlord.
Yeah. And it's crazy that you mentioned how the warrior stage, you feel like, has shifted in recent times. I feel like, like John basically says, this is the masculine journey. This is the pathway. This is how people progress through their manhood if they are doing it in a healthy way. And, every single stage has more responsibility. Every single stage has greater influence. Every single stage, the stakes are higher, et cetera, et cetera. But I love what you said about the warrior, because I had the image in my head of like, formerly it would have been, I'm a soldier in this king's army, whether that was like physically on the battlefield, or whether it was like in an organizational hierarchy, or I'm an apprentice to a local entrepreneur, or whatever. Now it very much feels like everyone's like independent military contractors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where they're just kind of like immediately just like, I have no sergeant, I have no line manager, and I'm just going to go straight in. And then whenever you become a king, you end up being a tyrant, because you have no idea how authority works. You only know the sword. You only know the gun. You've no idea how to rule with tact and with grace and all that relational stuff that you only learn in the context of being in relationships with other people and being in a hierarchy. And I think as men, it's like we love to be in a hierarchy, because it helps us see where our place is, where our role is, what our function is. And I do think that these days we have totally destroyed hierarchies of like every single kind. And for the young guy, or even the old guy that's just like sitting in his bedroom, grinding all day on his laptop, he's just like floating in a void. And it's like, no wonder people feel so lost, and people feel so like, I don't even know if like the world feels real anymore. It's because like you're living in this like constructed digital apocalypse that is just like so disconnected from how like humanity has worked up until this point.
Yeah.
And I think like John does something amazing where he's like, masculinity can only be passed on by other men. And if we are not getting exposure from other men, then we're just little boys with big laptops and big bank accounts.
Is that what you call it now? A big laptop? Yeah.
It should really be like small, sleek, high-tech laptop and big bank account. Yeah.
But this is the thing, we're gonna get initiated by something. Right? It's not like, I mean, that's the other thing, which is like, we're meant to be initiated by the company of men, including our Father. Like the most ideal scenario is this sense of like our Father and the company of his brothers and his men initiate us through these stages. And the beautiful thing about that is if it's just a mixture of, and you know, some of us don't have an earthly dad, and some of us don't have a great relationship with our earthly dad, but we've all still hungry for that father figure. So, you know, it's getting away from just the dad piece, but in the sense the company of men who can bring us through this journey also really unpacks for us this deep need for us to be able to understand this one principle of we're hungry for a belonging of who we're becoming together. Rather this, you know, and that's what these stories that we love so much, the Fellowship, the Lord of the Rings, all of these epic stories, they have this sense of togetherness, and we're going to be coming into the fullness of who we are. And that is deeply covenantal. So there's this other, I mean, I can go on and on about this piece, but give me a second. But it's like this. If you haven't understood the covenantal understanding of how it works between the masculinity, we'll totally screw it up when it comes into marriage. Like the covenantal understanding of who we are as a sacrificial king within a covenant of marriage, we just can't understand it unless we've gone through those earlier stages of cowboy, warrior, under the guidance and under the covenantal relationship with other men. And that's a foreign concept, an absolutely foreign concept to so many of us, unfortunately.
I think the really good news is that the men don't have to be great people. Like, look at King David. It's like his dad kind of like treated him like the bastard that he was, just like left him out in the fields. It's like, oh, don't tell anyone that like David's my son. Then he serves Saul, which is like the worst mentor of all time. Literally tries to kill him like 40 million times. And even like his army and everything, like there's just a bunch of bros trying to figure it out, which is Alexander and I's favorite way of just looking at the Bible now, which is like just a bunch of bros that have no idea what's going on. But at least you're learning from the negative examples, and you're still, like shearing the sheep and cleaning up the crap, and you're in the castle and you're fighting wars that you don't want to fight, and you think Saul's a pussy, and you're the guy that's like Goliath, but you're still like honoring him. You can learn so much, if not even more, for whenever things aren't great. You just have to be in the arena, I think. And Alexander, I want to hear from you, because you've done so much men's work in the past, like psychedelic retreats, up the side of mountains, like literally physically wrestling trauma out of dudes. How do you look at these masculine stages, and has it changed in any way over the last few years?
Yeah, there's a book that very similarly to John's book walks through these stages, which is called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which is kind of the reference for the men's work world. So it operates in a pretty similar manner, and we would typically invite guys through those stages. But the biggest thing that I noticed is that men are not very trusting of each other today. And this kind of ties into what Luke was speaking about covenant level relationships, where, and I felt this really intensely one time, is that men, and the structure of how we existed as men typically was that we would be willing to die for the men around us in our life, whether that's a military setting, whether that's like in the town that you lived in or your family dynamic, whatever the case may be. And now a lot of guys will like think twice about lending their headphones to their friend. Like, it's wild. And so that base level of trust has completely been eroded. And to advance in this process, you need men that you trust, right? And so in some of these men's workbooks, they talk about the initiations, how they used to take, at least some might happen to some degree, but certain areas of the Amazon where a boy would reach a certain age, like, okay, now you can go on this crazy adventure by yourself, vision quest as thing. And at the end, they essentially get thrown into a pit of fire ants. And people are like, whoa, that's crazy. But he trusted the men. Like, this is not going to kill you. This is going to really hurt. And you're going to be, you hear all these phrases, oh, it'll help you man up. It's going to put hair on your chest. But there's this like in this covenantal energy where men were willing to sacrifice themselves for each other in some ways. That level of trust needs to be present to be able to say, okay, I have this mentor. I'm willing to sacrifice some element of the perfect boy, the boy that has no calluses on his hands, to say, okay, he's going now. There's some of the boy will remain, but if I'm going to become the cowboy, and my mentor say, hey, we're going up that mountain, and it's like a thunderstorm mountain, like you have to leave some stuff behind, and you have to really trust that guy and the horse, right? And so that's the biggest thing that I saw is most men don't trust each other, which stems from they don't trust themselves, which maybe we could drive back to like, they don't trust God. And so there's a trust recession.
Wow.
we won't pull the thread too much on that.
Are we info bros now?
Yeah. But, how do you build trust, right? Build trust through shared experiences where you hear other people, other men, use their words and their actions to make commitments, right? And they're fulfilled upon. Luke tells me, hey, I'll meet you there at 3, and he's there at 3. Maybe he's there at 2:50. And he's got a coffee waiting for me.
Yeah.
Right?
100%.
And that happens 100 times. I'm like, Luke's going to be there. Right? I think, just this orphan spirit is like, we don't trust that they're going to be there. Like, they're not going to be there. They're not, like, it's going to, like, there's some deep part of us that, like, I can't trust this king, this sage, right? Because they look out in the world, they look at the politicians, they look at the CEOs of these companies like, no, men aren't trustworthy. They're tyrants. They're going to hurt me. They're going to abuse me. They're going to use me for their ends, right? And so that's what a lot of men feel. And then you create these spaces, these containers like the fellowship or like a men's group, and they start to see, oh, wow, Matthew said he'd message me on Thursday, and he did. Maybe he cares about me. Maybe I can trust him. Maybe I can be vulnerable around him. And that's going to be required in order to initiate and to level up. You have to be vulnerable. You have to expose the chest. You have to remove the armor, the breastplate. And yeah, not easy when you don't have a formal process, a structure, initiation, a men's group, whatever the case may be. I feel really sad for the guys that are alone on their laptop floating in the abyss, right? Because they haven't been around the masculine journey, the initiation.
And I love what you said, because I think the reality is when you are not around men like that, and then someone does inevitably let you down, you have zero resilience. You're like, I knew it. Yeah. I knew that guy was like not gonna, and then like everyone falls out super easily and super quick. It's like one comment and all of a sudden it's like, like no one's friends anymore. And then you go deeper into your own isolation.
No repair.
No repair, because you haven't learned, again, that like skills of repair. I think the other like really important thing to say is that you can kind of seemingly look like you're going through these stages. But a big point that John makes in the book is that there's kind of like an external version of this, and there's an internal. So the external is like just even like physically age. It's like someone's a boy. Like I had a little boy 2 weeks ago, and look, you're talking about like just wants to belong. It's like he wakes up, he looks around, and he cries, and he just wants to be held. And as soon as he's held, he's just like, oh, I'm good. Like I belong here. I'm safe. He then will grow up into a teenager and hopefully do crazy things like jump off cliffs and, drive quad bikes or, I don't know, go fishing. Who the heck knows what's going to happen. He'll then become a young man in his 20s and he'll go off in pursuit of a mission, hopefully someone else's mission that he can learn from. Then around that time, as Luke was saying, he'll become a lover. So he'll discover romance. He'll discover hopefully a deep connection with God. And hopefully will fall in love with his craft as well. And then, 30s, 40s, 50s, he hopefully will get married, hopefully will have kids, and start to rule over a domain and a kingdom himself. And then finally, whenever he gets to, gray hair season, he will be a Gandalf that can help other people, other men walk through each of these stages. But there are plenty of, 80-year-old men that are still cowboys. They've never progressed. And so they haven't gone on that internal journey. And I think what John beautifully invites every single person who reads this book is that God wants to walk you through not only the external parts of this journey, but also the internal. And I think in the context of entrepreneurship, these are also really interesting entrepreneurial stages. So if you even think about just like a business idea, you start off as a boy, you have this like innocent idea. Oh, I have this idea. It's definitely going to work. It's really, really exciting. And then you have to move into the cowboy stage. You have to take it. You have to test it. You have to kind of get it, like beat it up a little bit, make sure it's okay. Then you're like, okay, well, it's time for me to actually go and take this to the market to see if there's actually something here. I'm in the warrior stage. I'm going to actually put the work in. And then you have the opportunity to fall in love with it. And I think it's only whenever you fall in love with it that you actually can be a king. You're not just trying to like force everything through. And it's the same with our own personal relationships too. I think if the reason why most warriors never become kings is because they skip the lover stage. They stay in that like aggressive, like what looks like Hollywood masculinity, but they don't go on that deeper, softer journey that teaches them how to actually rule and reign with love and with grace over other people. And I think the big unlock that Fathered by God provides is there how you progress through each of these stages is by letting God father you. And that's a huge, broad sentence. But what does that mean for you, Luke? Like, how do you let God father you? And if I can throw you one bone, one of my favorite ideas that John talks about is the difference between things happening to you versus for you.
Yeah. That's an epic kind of shift in our narrative, internal narrative because the stories that we tell ourselves are often the way in which we build our realities. And, the vows that we create, many of them because of the pain that we don't want to repeat, become much more of the force that guides us. And so one of the ways that you allow God to father you is that you allow him to change your scripts. You allow him to, by his spirit and by his counsel, through the word, through worship, through, and King David is a prime example of just being able to understand how to experience God and not just know God, and experience him as a father. And sometimes it involves, repenting. Sometimes it's like we've taken on this internal script around the way in which we're approaching our business. And, we've touched on this orphan spirit element, and it's this sense of if something goes wrong, it's all about me. And taking, and it's a really humbling thing to be able to say, okay, if something goes wrong, it's something just went wrong. And it's not, I'm not going to just continue to sort of like, okay, I must do better. And that's such a tension because of course we're moving forward to get better at business. We're getting better at our craft, whatever it might be. But it's this internal, instead of it building shame, if there may be guilt for us to deal with, but if it starts to build a narrative of shame as I just can't do this, that's been a really interesting journey for me personally. You know, in the journey of business is realizing that how many times when something didn't work out, when I can't make a client stick or something, is just to use narratives like, okay, well, I'm just not good at sales. I'm never going to be good at this, this, and this. I need, you know, this is not my world, or blah, blah, blah. And we use these internal scripts. And I personally have had to, part of what it means to do business with God is also trust him to build a better narrative in my mind. So it's sometimes just a question of repenting of my narrative and adopting his narrative. And you can't do that unless you're with him. You have to spend time with him, listening to what he's actually saying, and then learn the script that he wants to write on my heart instead of just my own mind.
Right.
Yeah, I think there's like a little inverse piece there too, which is interesting, where Luke was saying if something doesn't go right, like, oh, there's something wrong with me, and then again, like how the pendulum could swing, where it's like something doesn't go right, it's like something wrong with God. You know, like God's not a good father. He didn't take care of me here, because like in my example, I'm like, yeah, I'm awesome at sales. I'm the best at sales, and you know, a client doesn't stick, like Luke was saying. I'm like, God, something's wrong with God. God's not working here. Like I'm his son. I've got power and authority, and like magic wand God has not produced the magic outcome that I want. Right. And so it's interesting because I have like experienced both sides of the orphan pendulum, but it can be really tricky in business too, where you're like, okay, I'm going to build my business with God. Right. Highly favored. I'm like, I got the creator of the universe with me. Like, that's scaled us to like $100 million company. And then it doesn't go as planned. And you're like, huh, yeah, I guess. And then you come up with a narrative. Oh, I guess he's not as powerful as I thought. Oh, I guess he's not a good dad. I guess he doesn't care about me, or whatever the case is. Yeah. So to Luke's point, I think that narrative that occurs when conflict or tension arises, or a difficult thing, is so paramount for the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, and I love what John says. He invites us into this idea that what if every hard moment in your life is God actually like providing an opportunity to father you? And like, if you think about like how you guys treat your kids, it's like you intentionally allow them to walk down certain paths so that they learn lessons. And then afterwards, you help unpack it with them. And sometimes there's a bit of wrestling. And that wrestling is actually like super, super important. And I think, again, like Luke, what you talked about, like you're kind of like, oh, like holy God Almighty upstairs, like can't contest anything that he says. There's actually so much power in rolling up your sleeves and rolling around in the dirt and wrestling with God and be like, hey, like you promised me that this would happen, and it looks like it hasn't. Like, what the heck is going on there? And Alexander, I feel like you can speak to this wrestling side to God. Like, whenever I don't know, when you became a Christian, did you think it was one way? Has it changed? Has it flipped in any way?
Yeah, I mean, maybe people have heard of the WWE, you know? We're talking about the WWG. We wrestle with God.
Right.
I think that's a big part of what it means to be a son. And I can't remember, I think it came up when the three of us were together at some part of our crazy adventures, where it's like, oh yeah, like fathers, like one of their favorite things to do is wrestle with their kids on the floor. And my daughter loves to do this. And she will like get mad sometimes, and she'll start to go for it. And I'm like, okay, cool. She's like finding her edge, and I'm going to make sure she doesn't get hurt. Right. But if she does something really crazy, I might not be able to like catch her fast enough or whatever, but I'm making sure she doesn't get hurt, helping her find her edge. And when she goes too far, I'm like, whoa. Okay, cool. Chaos meter's too high. Let's bring it back down. And so I feel like, yeah, you know, particularly if we're speaking to men, you know, we've got some zest, we got some zeal, we got some energy. And when you when you find a new way, a new path, a new operating system, especially as an entrepreneur, you're like, oh yeah, let's go. Let's plug in Kingdom OS, and this baby is going to run. And when it doesn't, everything, every narrative, every hard thing will emerge. It will come to the surface, whether it's I'm not good enough or no one shows up for me or blah, 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 whatever it is. But just like entrepreneurship, like deciding to walk with God will bring up it will reflect everything that's been shoved in a closet or you thought it was forgotten. And that's a wrestle. But as you were mentioning too, like a lot of men do not have capacity for conflict. They don't have capacity for uncomfortable tension in a friend group. So one bad comment, they're gone. Same thing here. I feel like I've been developing my capacity for difficulty in the journey with God because, hey, if you're looking for an easy path, don't read the Bible. Don't read any of those stories because there's like even Matthew pointed out, like even King David, because we love to be like, oh, King David, like he's the GOAT. Like, do you actually want to live that story?
Oh.
Do you want that to be your life? And you could then you get the sense of like some of his language of like there's a wrestle, there's a yearning, and there's a wanting, and there's a sorrow, and there's a grief. You know, it's all there. So.
And that's like the Lion King story where Simba's like, I just can't wait to be king. And then he realized that like being king means killing his uncle and like ruling over the animal kingdom with like ferocity. And it is like, you know, we have this really funny entrepreneurial vision of like, oh yeah, I'm going to sell my company for 100 million and sip Mai Tais on the beach and blah, 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 blah. And then like, if you think about like any, like even just think about the president of any country that you would like, or an actual king from history, it's like, they were not doing the 4-hour work week and just playing pickleball in the evenings. It was like, they experienced more, like I love any film or TV thing that depicts the Oval Office. And I just think, wow, my problems are so small. Like just those back-to-back meetings where it's like, hey, most horrific things ever happened. What are you going to do about it? And then like, okay, what's next? Hey, so this other horrific thing is like happened. It's like, what do you think about this? And it's like, oh, it's not even like 11 o'clock yet. And so I think like if we truly want to like actually be a kingdom builder and actually make an impact, then there's a lot of capacity that needs built up inside of us to even be able to handle those bigger missions and those bigger visions. And that capacity is only built through like calluses effectively. And I think it's okay for us as Christian men to say that and to embrace that, because that is just what you see in the masculine journey everywhere. It is through the hardship, it is through the hard times, it is through the failure that God actually turns you into the vehicle, the vessel, the tool that he wants you to be. And never do I ever want to pretend or paint a picture that like, yeah, just like build a business with God and like everything's going to be super easy. It's like, no, it's probably going to be harder actually, because you can't just do it. You can't just go and do your, you can't just go and do it all by yourself and force something over the line, because you're going to be called to a higher standard. You're going to be called into an even bigger adventure than you would have been before. And that requires a lot more refining. It requires more chisels on that block of marble to get the real you out of there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
In the spirit of our inner info bros, maybe Matthew, you can share the advertisement for like, hey, so you want to like build your business with God? It has features like this. Like, what are your like 3 bullet points?
100%. By the way, we're 1 minute until that time, and so if you guys need to bounce, just bounce. Like, there's no issues at all. But it is very funny. It's like a lot of like online Christian business stuff. It's like, hey, if you start building your business with God, you'll be able to tap into that kingdom economics of like feeding the 5,000. You got 5 loaves, you got 3 fish. Well, boy, oh boy, are you ready to feed 5,000 million people, bro? Prepare your soil, get it ready to be cultivated so you can experience a 10-fold, 50-fold, even 100-fold harvest. And you're like, yeah, great. Sign me up. What I got? Yeah, you just got to sign your name on the dotted line. Don't worry, don't read the terms and conditions. You sign the dotted line, you give your business to the Lord, and then the Lord is literally just like, time to enter him into the fire protocol. And it's literally just like you get tested, you get like beat up all around the place. And you literally see all the characters in the Bible this happen. It's like Moses, like, okay, yeah, gonna set my people free. Like this is gonna be so awesome. It's gonna be such a great time. And then it's like, next verse. Then Pharaoh tried to kill Moses, and he escaped to the desert for 80 years, where he heard nothing from anybody about anything. And then it's like, he just becomes a shepherd. You're like, bro, like, that's not the way the advertisement sold it to me. And so I think it's important that we go into this with our eyes open. But also, one of my favorite quotes, Luke, you know this from previous projects we've been involved in. It's like the difference between a trip and an adventure is something goes wrong. And I think when we actually open our hearts up to this idea where it's like, I actually want a really difficult, awful quest to go on, because just going and playing pickleball is so boring. It's like to have your cash flow just be perfect all the time. It's like, man, I want to feel alive. Like, I want to go on an adventure with God. And that's the thing. Not for God. It's with. And it's not without. It's with. And it's not an orphan. It's him side by side, where he's, I don't know what metaphor you use, Alexander. It's like he's in the horse in front, and you're just like, I hope this guy doesn't kill us both. Okay. So I'm going to just jump straight into, we were going to talk about the mentor crisis. John Eldredge made this statement like this. He held this position 15 years ago, and I disagreed with him heavily. In fact, when I met him in person, I tried to have an argument with him about it, and he just like laughed at me. I was like 21 at the time or something. And it was like, there are not enough mentors to go around. There are not enough high capacity men to fill the gaps that are in society. There's just not enough to go around. And I was like, no, you can always find a mentor. You can pay for coaching. You could do it. And I recommend you doing all those things. But then as I got into like later into my life, I was like, oh crap, John's right. Like, there's so many uninitiated men, and they're still boys that look like they're kings, but they're not, or they look like they're sages, but they're actually still cowboys. And that guy that you looked up to, that entrepreneur who said he was a Christian, had an affair with his secretary and like blew up his marriage of 30 years. And now he drives a motorbike and wears a leather jacket. And you're just kind of like, oh, where are all the men? And so John's whole idea is like, look, you have to build your life with God because you've got no other choice. Like, there's no other like scalable solution to meet the needs of men around the world. And that's literally what God is. That's what the Holy Spirit is. Like, thank God for God, because otherwise we would be absolutely wrecked. And so I want to move to like end on kind of like these practical ways. Like, how can we actually start to do this? How do you invite God into every aspect of your life? How do you actually, what does it actually physically look like on a daily basis to build your business with God? And again, if you need to jump, totally cool. But the first one I have on my list here is the 5-minute timer. Yeah, Alexander, I feel like I got to go to you for the 5-minute timer.
Yeah, the 5-minute timer, I guess, came to us. God delivered it to us through one of the in-person masterminds or retreats that we were doing. But the concept is creating very intentional space to invite God to provide wisdom and direction about a very specific thing. So as entrepreneurs all the time, like, okay, and and then people from also my background is like the new age space, and it's like they understand this. Like, don't ask very broad questions because it's not useful. You need to ask something very specific or visualize something very specific if you want to happen.
Isn't it funny how people who use Ouija boards know how better to talk to God than Christians do?
Oh man, that's the title of your next podcast.
AI will be like, that's the one. Run that one, bro. And it's like a thumbnail of us like, ah.
Yeah, I mean, because they're like, hey God, like, how can I be wealthy? And he's like, bro, I mean, come on. Versus like, hey God, I made this offer and I really want to help Christian men. But it seems like, none of them are resonating with the idea of helping them to have, better cut lawns, like what gives? Okay, like, come on, okay, I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes. I'm going to intentionally open myself up. I'm going to listen. I'm going to feel. I'm going to hear. I'm going to see. I'm going to use all my senses and just see, how does the Holy Spirit want to communicate this with me? And I like the framing of, hey, what do you want me to know about this? And maybe what do you want me to do about this? An intentional space. And then, we all know this is you can't cheat on your timer, because some of the best stuff happens right at the buzzer beaters. Holy Spirit's hilarious like that. You're like, all right, well, okay.
Holy Spirit buzzer beater. The final 2 seconds of the timer, it's like a half-court shot, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to not work with that client.
Yeah, it's like nothing. You're like, oh, well, I guess this is just,
I guess God's not real. I guess, all of a sudden you're crying.
Yeah, it's just like the most crazy revelation right at the buzzer beater. But super like practical, useful tool for an entrepreneur who, and again, like if you're a dad as well, or you're a parent and like life is hectic, so you're like, yeah, well, you didn't pray for 45 minutes this morning? You're like, well, no, my kid was throwing up. And so sometimes you need these intentional pockets of space just to say, hey, I'm going to listen, I'm going to open up, I'm going to feel. Been super powerful for us. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, again, when that like hard thing hits you in the face, whether it's like an internal thing or an external thing or whatever, where it's like, or you're just confused, like so much of the entrepreneurial journey is just like being confused all the time. It's like, should I work with this partner? And you could spend like 4 hours like drawing conspiracy theories on your whiteboard, or you could just be like, you know what? Let me just like Stephen does this to me all the time. He literally hands me a timer. He goes, just set a 5-minute timer, bro. It's like, drink your milk, take your medicine. I'm like, okay. And I'll literally set a 5 minute timer. I'm like, okay, Father, please speak to me. Like, should I work with this person? And it'll be like very clear no. And if you're looking for a yes or no answer, like a really practical way to do this with the timer is just like, please just show me a red light or a green light. And you might see the color, you might feel the color, we don't really know how all this sort of stuff works. But like very often, more times than not, you'll get something very, very clear and you're like, okay, great. Or so it could be for big things. It could be like, do I work with this client? Should I change this about my offer? Should I do this? Should I do that? Or even just like I use it for the most stupid stuff. Like I was building out a webinar earlier, and webinars usually have 3 pillars, and I had done 1 pillar, and it was quite long. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I should do the final 2 pillars or if I should just focus on the 1 pillar. And before I went off on like a 4-hour, I'm going to change everything about everything, I just like set a 5-minute timer, and I felt like I was like, don't be a wuss, like just finish the next 2 pillars. I was like, thank you for correcting me and making me better.
Most of what God says to us. Don't be a wuss. Also, don't use this tool if you don't want answers that you don't want. Like, it's so classic. We're like, should this person, come to this retreat? We're all like, nah. Like, should we check the 5-minute timer? It's like, it's like it's already guaranteed. They're like, God's like, yep, guess what? They're coming.
Yeah.
So user beware.
So that's like, it sounds so simple, but all these things are. Like any point in your day where you're faced with a decision, it's like Dan Sullivan's Who Not How. The ultimate who is the Holy of Holies, the King of all kings, the coaches of all coaches. His name is Jehovah, and he wants to help you figure out your offer because he actually cares about you and he cares about your business. Luke, talk to me about spirit-led strategy. So there's a lot of talk in the corporate world about, setting quarterly goals and annual planning and get your 10-year vision. Is that just for Fortune 500 bros wearing suits, or can we get some of that with a little Holy Spirit sprinkle on it?
I love you guys, and I have to go, so I will watch
God
the
bless
end of
you,
this,
brother.
like everyone
So
else.
good.
Yeah. Love you
See
guys.
you around.
Love you lots. Peace out.
Spirit-led goals. I mean, it sounds a little. Sometimes I think it sounds a little cliche, doesn't it? Because it's like, well, how is that any different from just a normal goal? What's the difference between a spirit-led goal and a normal goal?
I want a Bugatti goal.
Yeah, and I think it comes out of the practice of that 5-minute timer, which it builds into you, is that sense of being able to kind of recognize what what the Spirit sounds like. And I think that's the beauty of regularly doing things like the 5-minute timer versus going to ChatGPT or, you know, just another friend or something, call a friend, is that you learn, you kind of get a sense, a feeling, a better idea as to what the sound of the Spirit sounds like versus what my own soul is kind of just wanting to conjure up. Yeah, so that's the first thing. What would you say has been your biggest takeaway about Spirit-led goals?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Getting your reps in is like the most important thing. So it's like a lot of people are like, how do you even hear God's voice? It's like, just practice it.
Yeah.
I remember reading a little tiny book when I was a teenager called Practicing the Presence of God. I think it was written by some monk, maybe Brother Lawrence. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I love the title. It's like practicing the presence of God. It's like, just practice hearing from God. It's like, start doing low stake 5-minute timers. Like, start running experiments where like, I don't know, because I don't really know what I'm doing. I've never done this before, but like, I feel like God is telling me to do this. Okay, well then, as long as it's not like mission critical to the, know, survival of civilization, it's like, go and run the experiment, see what happens, and get your own feedback and build up confidence in your ability to hear from God. And for really simple things, you don't need to do a lot of discernment. You don't need to, sit there and meditate for 4 weeks to figure out if you're supposed to, I don't know, buy a new jacket or something. But for the bigger things, you do have to take a longer period of time, and you do talk to people in your life that you trust, and you come to, your other fellowship of kings. And you're like, look, I feel like God's leading me in this direction. What do you think about this? Am I being crazy? You talk to your wife, you talk to your friends, you talk to, the sages that you have in your life, if you have them, you talk to the community or whatever. But I think the biggest thing for me has just been like doing it and inviting God into those processes. So we talk about like the 5 rhythms. So an annual planning meeting, a quarterly planning meeting, a monthly financial review, a weekly planning call, and then your daily devotional, which we call the 15-minute founder. And it's just like, the first few times you do this sort of stuff, you will probably get it wrong. And that's okay, because the good news is you can't do it wrong, because you're on a journey. And you have a Father who loves you, and who, just like you watch your child learn how to walk. It's like, take a few steps, and then they fall, and they take a few steps, and then they fall. And that is actually how they learn to walk. You cannot learn to walk without the falling. And so I think people get really mystified by hearing from God. They get really scared about it. And I would the thing that helped me the most was just like having these really low stake, low risk environments to start to practice it, so that I could develop more and more confidence for the bigger decisions in my life. And so that I could, with full conviction and full authority, in those moments where even the people around me are like, I really don't know about this, are you sure? I'm like, in my heart of hearts, I know that all of the omens and all of the signs and all of my fleeces and all of my conversations with the Lord that I'm having every day are pointing towards this direction. And I have to, as a man, take this leap of faith. And that's where the real good stuff happens. But you only get there from the reps. Talk to me about daily devotionals, like this idea of, Spirit-led on the day by day for our lives and our business.
I think that just is it's the same with regards to the reps, isn't it? I mean, I grew up with my mom saying to me, she would say to me at breakfast, what did God tell you this morning in your quiet time? So, that was the kind of, it was drilled into me from a young kid that you have a quiet time before breakfast. And and then later on in life, I resented that as just a spiritual practice, and and just thought, I'm just going to throw it all away and actually just be about when I want to and when I feel like it. I'm gonna read the Bible, or I'm going to engage with God, and that took me on a whole different journey. But I think there's this real beauty about holding these two tensions, and I think this is the Christian walk, and this is the walk of any entrepreneur that's wanting to build with God, is you've got to get really, really used to holding tensions of two truths that are almost opposites. And I think that is so much of what I've found in spiritual disciplines is that God will say, take a Sabbath, but doing the Sabbath doesn't do anything for your actual spiritual ability to be able to hear God. It's for you. And so you want to do these disciplines thinking that that's going to earn you the ability to be able to kind of get up the ladder with being able to be closer to God or hear him better. And yet none of those things are designed for God to kind of give us brownie points. And so then we got to hold these two things in tension. I think one of the key things though for me is if I'm saying in my heart, if I'm saying in my spirit, I feel God is saying this to do this, then not doing it is worse than having asked in the first place, if that makes sense. So it's the obedience of following through, even if it doesn't do anything, or you may have even heard wrong. It's the process of following through with acting on an understanding of that's what faith is in an obedience, then that has done more for me personally with regards to like a spiritual journey than anything else. Is just following through with what you hear.
And I think this is where the masculine stages tie in beautifully, because you have to progress from the boy to the cowboy in this context of hearing from God to the point where you get to the king stage or you get to the sage stage and you're able to make big steps of obedience because you've done the smaller stuff first. And you're right, there's times where you do get it wrong. But that's just a rep to give you some data of like what not to do the next time, or why did that happen and how can I approach this going forward in the future? And I think like we're just so afraid of doing it wrong.
Oh.
I got a prophecy from this guy in my church, this old sage, and he's in his 70s at the time, and he came up to me. I was maybe 19. And he goes, I have a prophetic vision for you. And I was like, here we go. I was like, okay, what is it? And he goes, Matthew, you think that your life is a tightrope. And you think that if you just move 1 degree to the left, you're going to fall off and you're going to ruin everything. And he goes, I feel like God is telling me to tell you that your life is more like an 8-lane highway, like one of those big ones that you see in America. And you could swerve to the right, you could swerve to the left. Do you know what? You could actually just go off the ramp and just take a complete detour. But as long as you're pursuing him, he will always bring you back on course. And all you have to do is just try your best to head in the general direction and trust him to take care of the rest. And I feel like with business, it's like sometimes you just have to take the action and see where it takes you. And I love like Jonathan, David's best friend, Saul's son, that story with the armor bearer where he sees the Philistines up on the hill and he turns to his armor bearer and he's like, should we just go up this hill? It's like, I don't know. Maybe the Lord will be with us. We'll know pretty quickly or not if he is, based on whether or not we get absolutely slaughtered. And I think there is a time and a place to be very, very careful and slow. But I think God is, and if you look at all of the patriarchs in the Old Testament, they were men of action and they got it wrong constantly. But God was faithful to keep bringing them back on track. But you're never going to even make it out the door of the Shire if you're not prepared to take a risk. And sometimes like the masculine journey and the business journey is just like, take a bunch of risks, do your best, see what journey God takes you on, and hope the Holy Spirit can course correct you along the way.
Yeah. I mean, he's got it at the end of the day. I think that's the other thing of like, swinging all the way back to the orphan spirit is if we're orphans, no one's got us.
Yeah.
No one's holding us. We're on our own. We're completely, everything that we do is coming back to just us. And when we've got families and when we've got employees and we've built this big, giant business, but on the inside we're completely orphaned in the sense that's that's going to lead to, a nervous breakdown, a midlife crisis, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And yet, as people who build with God, even though it's sometimes, like we've been saying, the hardest thing in the world, it's what it does day by day. It's carving this belonging. It's carving this deep settled, rest in I am His, He is mine. I'm the apple of His eye. There's this sense where, just going back to David, he 1/3 of all his psalms were lament, in this deep, painful sort of anguish, crying out to God, "Where are you? I'm going to die if you don't show up. I haven't slept for a week." 1/3 of all the psalms is that tone, and it's good for us to kind of leave aside some of the stoicism, which is so prevalent, and instead get into that place of where we can be emotional men before God and just like rip it open. And when Jesus says, "What good father, if you ask for a fish, will give you a stone?" And yet we sometimes think, well, I can't ask for anything from God. I can't ask for anything as Him as my Father. And it trains us to then be these very stingy, fearful, not able to take a risk kind of entrepreneurs. But if we've got it and we've built these little things, man, there's nothing that can really hold us back.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen this before. There's a passage in Jeremiah where like God gives Jeremiah his call, and it has that like third thing that you're talking about. So I can't remember it exactly. I tried to find it. I couldn't find it. But it's paraphrasing. It's like, I have called you to tear down, uproot, destroy, start fresh, something like that. And I've also called you to build up, fortify, and restore. And I remember a guy preaching on it, and he was just like, do you realize that 2/3 of Jeremiah's mission was to like subtract, was to remove, was to plow up hard ground, was to get rid of like the junk? We think it's all going to be just like, yeah, I'm going to be building. It's like, actually, we're probably going to spend more time unearthing and like excavating the stuff that's inside of us to actually get ourselves ready for everything that God wants to do in and through us.
Yeah.
Powerful. So, yeah, if you're in the fellowship already, you know all about the 15-minute Founder. That is just this really simple daily devotional practice that we encourage you guys to explore. It's really, really simple. It's an easy way to bring your faith and your business together every single day. You set 3 Spirit-led goals for the day. So you ask God, what are the 3 things you want me to do? You write a letter to God where you process your problems with Him. And then you do a little SOAP, which is you just take one verse of Proverbs every day and you just run it through a very, very simple framework. If you're not in the fellowship already, there's a link in the description and you can jump in and give that a whack. But yeah, we did it. I think that's a good jumping off point into this strange, mystical world of building your business with God. Luke, any final words, any final thing on your heart that you want to share with the guys?
I think one of so many things that we've talked about is like, we must. And I think it's just coming back to this little phrase is we get to. And it's just this deep gratefulness that God actually wants to be with us. And just always taking it back to this place of like we building and being on the mission, and all of that is fantastic. But the most incredible thing is that God of the universe wants to be with us. And so, and it's okay when things are really just hitting the fan, to just sink back into that realization of I have a father and he wants to be with me. And because as men, we're not good at really being honest with ourselves as sometimes where it feels overwhelming and it feels just too difficult. And so, yeah, just if that's you, then it's okay to just sink back and learn how to rest and be a boy again. Even though you're a king right now or a warrior right now, we're just totally able to be boys again. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, Father, thank you for these men. Thank you for the fellowship of men that are going on this journey to use their business to make earth look more like heaven, to build your kingdom through the entrepreneurial gifts that you've given them, to rise up to become the husbands and the fathers and the entrepreneurs that you're calling us to be. And I just pray that you take us by the hand as the little boys that you will always see us as, no matter how kingly we become or how much, gray beards we grow. Just take us into that deeper relationship with you. No matter what stage each of us is at, you know what deeper looks like. And I just pray that you call out to the deep parts of our hearts and you start to initiate us further into this partnership with you. We are co-heirs. We share the inheritance of Christ. He was the firstborn son. We are your sons and you are our Father. And I pray that you help us to run our businesses and our families and our lives in a way that reflects that, and prompt us. Please prompt us on how we're supposed to do that. I pray that anything useful that we shared today will take root and anything unuseful will just fade away. And that, you'll make everything perfect according to your will. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And in a very weird, sacrilegious moment, I'm going to do this little outro music. And then it's a wrap.
Yo, Frodo, what you doing wearing the ring? All powerful jewelry? Is that your new thing? I know it's hard when you're little more 3'4", little lost so close to floor. Trying to lead the fellow to the gates of Mordor, the fellowship. Yeah, the fellowship. I don't rap about bitches and hoes. I rap about witches and trolls. Passed on the words of the Elven King. Wisdom to all. Frodo.
Who knows? It's either the greatest pilot episode of all time or we're all going to get fired and thrown into the back of a van somewhere. Luke,
Stephen's going to be like,
yeah, Stephen's like, you're never allowed to go to the office after hours ever again. Luke, thank you, dude. And thank you so much, everyone who's come on this ride with us. Any questions at all, just drop it in the fellowship. We'll be more than happy to follow up. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
bye.